Hey, we're live. It's Wednesday. We're back. I'm so excited. I'm April. I'm founder of retailu, and this is my weekly live on LinkedIn, but now it's going on YouTube and on Facebook. And it's the positive effect. I'm here to bring to life conversations around retail leaders, careers, and so much more. And today I am so thrilled to have, can I say, my favorite retail leader right now? I was like, one of them? No, you are my favorite retail leader right now, Ron. I'm so
Oh,
excited to bring you onto the positive effect and have this amazing conversation with you today.
oh, thank you. You are, I didn't know you as a retail leader before your career, but you're one of my favorite friends for sure.
Oh, thank you.
Favorite fellow authors. How about that?
Yeah, we're fellow authors. Yeah, we had a lot happen in 2020. So today we're going to have, just a conversation really about retail, about our careers, and I'm going to pick your brain. I've got my questions on my phone right here to ask you. So there's a lot of information I want to pull out of you in 30 minutes, and I've also got your book, Retail Pride.
Yes.
I've got
and I have yours, The Positive Effect.
Yay! So I'm sure that a lot of people know who you are, but I'm going to start with assuming that there's going to be people joining this from all over the world that may not know who you are. So I want you to introduce yourself. Tell us about your journey and your career in retail, because it's so inspiring to listen to.
Oh, thank you. So I grew up in Northern California in Lake Tahoe, and which is very small town. And I had my grandfather on my mom's side owned a construction company who built the first firehouse and first grocery store and first schools. And my uncle was the mayor, and it was very much like ingrained in the community. And the reason I reference that is because I was around very strong leaders as a young boy who may have run smaller businesses at the time, but really set a good kind of example for me about leadership. And then as my grandfather's company grew, they started building all the Safeway stores on the West Coast.
Wow.
The company grew. Literally every member of my family worked for my grandfather, except me. Both of my parents, my uncle, my brothers at some point in and out. And I was like, I don't love this business, but I love watching you. And so I started, as a teenager, I started traveling with him, going to job sites, construction sites, and watching him lead like the men on the team. Mm-hmm. And that really set the standard of how, when I think about leading kind of with empathy and curiosity, and focus is what I write about.
Yeah.
His ability to do that just inspired me. And I knew I want to work in some kind of version of this industry today in retail design. I didn't really have any idea, but I knew this was the industry I wanted to be in. I was going to be a buyer, a designer, a retailer. I didn't care. I just had to work in this business. So I did go to FITM in California and studied. I have a degree in fashion design and a degree in retail merchandising. Okay, I understand both sides of it. My grandmother owned a fabric store and taught me how to sew. So I did know how to make my own clothes, which going to fashion design school is helpful. And I was a pattern maker for years. I was a pattern maker. I was a design room manager. I was a designer. I was actually California Menswear Designer of the Year nominated.
Wow.
So I was on this design trajectory. But then I said, this is great. I'm glad I have all this knowledge, but I want to learn retail. And I did a Macy's leadership training program, and then started at Gap Kids. So this was kind of early 90s. And I was an assistant manager. I had been in sales during college. I had worked in department stores, and at that time, then I just had the opportunity to grow my career through a company that you and I both worked for,
yeah,
who was very invested in training and development and mentorships and identifying top talent and moving you in those roles. And I moved pretty quickly. From store manager, I became the general manager of the highest volume store. Then I had my first district manager experience, and it continued to grow. And then the last, almost 25 years later, I've worked for some really great brands doing great kind of multi-store leadership work, and leading teams in a way that, my book is dedicated to my grandfather, because I still to this day really try to lead in a way that would inspire him. He literally worked until he was 92.
Wow.
He worked in the Sacramento Food Bank, went to the gym every day, and then didn't feel well one day and passed away. I'm like, that's the life, married 50 some odd years. And I would like to think that I still now take a lot of those kind of ideas of leading with empathy, leading with curiosity, engaging at all levels, being very much about giving back to the people around you and asking great questions. I can go through the brands, but I think at the end of the day, I chose brands because of the interesting things that they were doing in the industry and what I could learn from those brands.
Yeah, we were having this conversation just before we jumped on, right? And I was sharing that a lot of times people asked me, even when I was leading stores and I was doing store visits, but people asked me when I was starting to put this idea of putting the weekly broadcast on LinkedIn, what did they want to hear about? And they said, a lot of field managers, because that's our audience in retailu, wanted to hear about the career transitions and how you can grow, because we've both had that experience from being a store manager to a district manager to multi-site to, executive. And so they asked me, can you guys share about how you do that? Because I think that's a conversation that is hard to find when you're looking for leadership development and career growth and advice. And we were having this conversation before we jumped on, right? So
we were, yeah.
I'm going to start with, let's talk about that, because we were just talking about it. So share what you mean by that when you say you looked at the retailers with the opportunities. Like, how did that help you grow in your career? Like, what were you looking for?
Yeah. So I have looked for brands that do that have had a heavy investment in people and culture and training and stores that were willing to invest and spend that time, and that their presence in the industry was important at that time in their history. So I'll share the example I shared with you. When I left Gap after 10 years, and even within Gap, what I appreciated about my time is I was at kids, then I was at adult, which was really controversial. Of like, well, you run a baby store. Can you sell adult denim? I'm like, watch me. I can sell baby clothes, kids clothes, adult clothes, maternity clothes, active. I was that guy of like, well, let's see if you can run adult stores. Right. And then I went to Banana Republic. Then I went to Outlet. I opened the first outlet mall, Old Navy, Banana Republic outlet, and Gap outlet. I ran all three at the same time. I'm like, right. Can you run an outlet mall? So anytime they asked me to do something, I said yes, which was also part of, I think, my career of saying, what are the opportunities to stretch yourself? And you say yes to those. But when I left Gap, I joined Charlotte Russe, which at the time was pre H&M, pre Zara, pre all fast fashion brands. Charlotte Russe was the place. And we had 800 stores. Wow. And I said, and they needed a district manager. And I had already, through my career, had significantly more stores than that. But I said, you know what? This is a place that has a lot of opportunity for growth, is opening stores literally every week. Mm-hmm. I can be here and learn. I didn't have a passion for the product, but I had a passion for expanding my skill set.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. And then, I joined West Elm and took a step back and said, this is a startup, and I want to learn how to do this. And came back and I was a district manager back again. When I joined Apple, they said, you need to actually know how to run a store. I had 150 stores before this. And they said, no, you need to run one again. I'm like, let's do it. And it was the best year of learning how to not only learn Apple, but learn how to run a store again.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. I had that same experience because leaders have always asked me, and is the role more important than the brand on their resume, and what's going to make them highly kind of sought after? And I always say, well, it's a bit of combination of both, but the role is really important because that role, like you're sharing, is going to give you those experiences, challenge you to grow. And there was many times in my career that I took step backs. So one of them was when I went to Apple from running 15 stores, I went back into an assistant manager role. But from that role, I went then on to be a director in another business. And then that brand that I was working with, Laura Canada at the time, it's a mature women's brand. I was in my early 30s. The average age of the employee was probably in their 60s because it mirrored the customer. But I had the opportunity to run 65 stores, and I learned so much. And then that took me on to Holt Renfrew, which then took me on to David's Tea and became a vice president of 250 stores, which I would have never done if I hadn't taken those steps. So I think it's a combination of both, right?
I would 100% agree. And doing your homework in advance of what do they do really well? Where are they growing? Where are they not? What can I learn and gain? Who's leading the company? All of those questions are an important just filters to use, because don't quickly just jump into a role or a title because you may not love your experience. Yeah. And so don't be afraid to take that step back with the intent of moving forward.
Yeah, 100%.
That's it's really unique in our industry that we actually have the ability to do that. Mm-hmm. Many other channels of work don't have that opportunity. And we here say, you know what? I actually just want to sell. I want to be really good at selling. I want to run one store, or I want to work on visual side or ops or finance. Like I want to do a lot of different things. Retail offers those opportunities for those companies.
Yeah. So I'm going to jump into your book. Hey, Kamoy. Hey, Kelly. Just seeing a few of you guys joining our broadcast. Nice to see you guys. So I'm going to jump into your book. On page 107, it says how to put it to work. And there's one paragraph that I just love. And I think this is really great words of advice. It says, take control of your own career development. And then we go into a little bit about that, how you take control of your own career development. So I want to ask you, what did you do to grow in your leadership skills and position on the premise of take control of your own career development? Because again, anybody watching this is looking for those practical tips from retail leaders like us that have actually done it. Yeah. Can you share a bit about that?
I would love to. I think number one, be as well networked and educated about what's happening in the entire industry, not just your own channel. So when I say take control of your career, you will never only work in apparel. You'll never only work in home. You worked at Apple and David's Tea. Mm-hmm. Same. I sold furniture and computers and baby clothes, and then I went into the ultimate of luxury with Saint Laurent, and run a luxury brand today. And so, but knowing what's happening all around you in tech and people and culture, the books that are written, for me, that's taking control of your career so that you can have an educated conversation about the industry, not just your company.
Yeah.
And that took a long time for me to get to that place, because we love often the brands we work for, and we're immersed in those brands. And it's like we put blinders on about what's happening everywhere else. We do. And then you don't network well. You're not, if it doesn't work for your company, you don't learn about it. We don't have a budget for that.
Yeah, so I was on your live on Saturday morning. So Ron has a live now. So you have to head to Retail Pride. Is it .com?
Yep.
retailpride.com and sign up for his Saturday lives, because I was on a live and you never know who you're going to be pushed into this little, random group with. And I was in a live with Kevin
Lonergan.
Okay, Kevin Lonergan.
Right?
Yeah. So I was on a live with him and he shared, and I didn't know who he was because he didn't say what he did in that group. I looked him up afterwards. Amazing leader, But
Amazing.
he said, humble, because, you know, he didn't share his roles that he'd had, but he said, I was so focused on my team that I didn't network enough.
Yeah.
I didn't reach out enough because I was so focused on my team. And I think we love retail because we love working in a team. We love supporting others. We're an in-service person. I know you are too. And I heard that from him. And it was like, if I could look backwards and give somebody advice, I would say the same thing you're saying. Not just focus on your team and what you need to do with them, but really expand yourself and network out. It took me a long time to get there too. I think when I moved into more of an executive role, I had to be more knowledgeable about what was going on in the industry because I was now making decisions on rolling out expensive programs or, you know, things that could really impact 5,000 employees. And so I really had to know more. But if I look backwards, I would have done that more from the get-go.
I 100% agree with you. And it's almost like I had, because of the brands I worked for, I had a really big network, but it was almost unintentional. And that's why, like, part of the book was like, be intentional about your network. You have to work it. You know, it doesn't just, you know, you and I have huge like LinkedIn followings, and that didn't happen by accident.
No.
Very planful about it, and you know, attending. That's what I love about all the live webinars and all the things like Retail Innovation Week, and it's all free. You have all the best-in-class leaders in the industry that you're watching them speak, you're learning, and may have nothing to do with what you're doing today. Yeah. But I walk away from those and saying that is intentional networking. It is taking control of your own career, because you don't know who you're going to speak, to your point. You don't know who you're going to meet. Yeah. And you need to be bigger than the brand you work for. Absolutely. And that is really hard. I'm not saying that lightly, because I struggled with it my entire career. Yeah. About this. Yeah.
So I'm going to dive into another question that I want to pick your brain on right now. I'm going to change direction a little bit, but tell us about a time that you failed and what you learned from it. Because I think that there's some key lessons that we all learn from our, you know, let's call it failures. We have, you know, I'm going to say failure, but nothing ever really is a failure. You're going to learn from it. So can you share something like that?
I would say it's less of a failure and more of like a skill that a lack of a skill that inhibited me, and it was public speaking.
Okay.
And I have had opportunities where I felt like I got off stage and failed, like because I have so much knowledge and I have so much to share, and then I get scared, and I was like, okay, that was terrible. Like who I am did not come across. I was not authentic. I was not myself. I was not engaging as I can be. And, you know, I've struggled with that. And so to be able to say, I'm going to now find resources or coaches or training to help me get better at this and find my own voice, it was something that held me back for a long time. And I do feel like I failed.
I can 100% relate to that, 100%, because when I had to get on stage, and I mean, it's funny because when I look back over my career, when I was at Banana Republic, I was on a stage in front of 400 managers when I was a manager, because I was part of that whole modern store group that kind of, you know, changed everything and changed all the roles. And so I was kind of like this poster child at the time, because I was in this subset of managers that had that amazing opportunity to work with everybody in California and create this modern store. And that was like back in 2003, I want to say. But I was on a conference stage in front of 400 managers, and I could do that because I could talk about the processes and the operations, and it was nerve-wracking. But then when I had to start talking about my own experience or my journey or things like that, I think back to 3 years ago when I started this journey with retailu, and it took me a year to actually be able to articulate what I could actually do or who I was or what I believed in, because I'd been so focused on the organizations and the company and just speaking in those roles. And that was what prompted me to write the book, really, because I was like, I have to put down what I actually stand for, as opposed to just training and rolling out operation process or whatever it was. And that was a real challenge. It took me quite some time. Now, if you ask me, like, what does retail you do? I got it down in an elevator pitch, but that was not easy.
Not at all. Similar with my book. You craft a story that is also very personal. So you're sharing personal stories. And I think to your point earlier, we're so good about giving so much to everyone else that you do forget about how to tell your own story.
Yeah.
And I would say failure / like lack of skill in that area that I have also had to work on overcoming.
Yeah. So if you were going to describe to someone, I love this question. If you were going to describe to somebody at a cocktail party what you do, what would you say? Because I read in your book, it's a lot about the accidental career and being proud of it. And for many years, I can remember saying, I just work in retail. Like it was not a big deal until I became a DM and I was like, oh, I work in retail. I'm like managing sites, But actually my favorite role was when I actually was in a store every day. And that's what I did when I was in David Sears as a VP. I would visit stores all the time at the weekends because I just missed it so much. But what do you say when somebody asks you what you do at a cocktail party? How do you describe it?
I had the exact same experience. I also spent most of my life in LA. So I was surrounded by the entertainment industry.
Right.
And all of my friends were in entertainment. And I often felt as though like my career was not as valid as theirs.
Right.
I was like, oh, yeah, I work in retail. And I remember even as a DM, I was so happy to be a DM, but then I would go to like a red carpet event in LA and I would be like, oh, what do you do? Oh I'm a district manager at the Gap. Like, okay, that's not that interesting. And so they move on. And I was horrified because I was so happy to do that. And I had to overcome that idea. But today it's a completely different idea. I really can say this is the most exciting industry to work in for so many different reasons. From all the people, all the new business ideas, the career advancement opportunities, the list goes on about why retail is such an important career. And we don't give ourselves enough credit for working in it. And, Retail Pride was such an intentional title because that's what we need to have this conversation.
Yeah.
About being proud to work in this industry and own your experience and own your career and choose those brands and do the work and educate yourself because no one's going to do it for you.
Yeah.
No one.
And I would say to a lot of, I used to say, I have, now the Retail U community with managers that want to grow their skills and district managers that want to grow their skills. And sometimes they're like, I just want out. I want to change. Like, I'm tired of it. And I want out. And I say, well, if it's not for you and, it's not for you. But a lot of times I'll say to them, I remember having that moment when I was like, I'm out. I'm going to do something else. And that's why I took my John C. Maxwell coaching certificate. It was about 7 years ago. And I remember being on a call with the president, Paul Martinelli, of the John Maxwell team. And he said to me, why are you doing this coaching program? I was like, well, I want out. I want to do something different. I'm going to build my business. And he said to me, why do you want to get out of something that you love and you've been in for so long? Why don't you just look at the opportunity in the business and take everything you know and your passion for it and do something that can solve the problem that you're so frustrated with? My frustration at that time was just leadership. And I remember I got off that phone and I said, oh my God, he's so right. What can I do? Because when I was starting to go down that road of learn somebody else's content, even when I was training those programs, they're amazing. And John Maxwell, I love. Yeah. But they were not relatable to my audience. And then I started tailoring them and changing them. And then they started becoming my own. And I was like, hold on a second. This is the leadership training that I want to actually give back to the industry. And that's how Retail U came about. It was never, it was kind of like from that frustration or the issue that I saw that we need better leadership. And I'm going to provide those courses that are going to help people learn how to be a great leader, because it's, to me, leadership impacts everything you do in an organization. I'm so passionate. Every time I have a conversation with somebody about a bad customer experience, I say it all comes back to the manager, the district manager, the regional director, and all the way up to the executive, because it starts trickling down. Like, do you agree?
I 100% agree. And it's about alignment. It's alignment on the leadership team and alignment within kind of the rest of the store infrastructure, that we're all supporting. We're all in service to stores, but we are all moving in the same direction, giving the same priorities, talking about leadership, being honest about growth opportunities. Same. I had a conversation on Monday night with a friend who had just kind of were in the focal review process, and other people on his team had been promoted and he didn't. And he went to his manager, and his manager said, well, I'm sure like the next 6 months, if you keep crushing it, I'm sure you're going to get it. And I said, I would really actually like to have a conversation with your manager, because that's not feedback.
Yeah.
So they just try to push the problem down the road.
Right.
And so I think we could all actually learn how to be better coaches, be more specific with our feedback. If you didn't receive the promotion and someone else who you deemed to be performing less than you received it, why? But that the fear of the uncomfortable conversation holds us back from providing that great feedback. Yeah. And so you're right, I love it. And some of it, he's actually not in retail, but these leadership ideals that are also, we don't go to a specific school to learn how to do this. We learn it on the job. So to your point around having a great leadership team, they are the ones teaching us what success should look like.
Yeah.
And if they're not, and that's the answer that you get, then it may not be the right place for you specifically. Because you have to, there's like all over my office here, there's like stacks and stacks of books, but the book will only get you so far.
You have to take action, right?
You have to action and do the work. There's just here, like this Emotional Intelligence 2.0 is the first one on the stack. Very interesting book. And you could read about emotional intelligence all day. Yeah. But is it something you actually possess?
That was one of my things when I used to do store visits. I'm looking at time. When I used to do store visits, one of the things I used to say all the time was, show me the development plan you're working on with your managers. And I used to say to the managers, if you don't have a development plan that actually has actionable things that you're going to measure in the next 3 to 6 months, then ask for it. Right? And let's spend our time there. Right. And that's another thing. That's another reason why I built retailu, is because every time I went somewhere, that's what I would start with. Because if you're going to get the same result all over again, but you're just going to go in with a checklist and do a visual walkthrough, you're not actually addressing the issue. You're not actually helping that person develop. And I think that's a bit of a gap. It's like you have people that learn fast and agile and go after it, and then you have other people that need more help. Yep. So I'm just looking at time and being conscientious of it, because I've got another 2 questions, and then we're going to, because we could stay here for 2 hours. Right?
We really could.
I'm sure everybody would stay with us. I know you have a job to do. So one of the questions I always love to ask people is, what is the best piece of advice you were ever given, and why? Because that advice that we're given is those mentorship moments that we can pass on to more people.
I actually, if I reference my grandfather as being, the one that would give me the most advice, and he, would say, like, you never know what's going on with someone outside of the work environment, and to don't make assumptions about someone's performance without understanding who they are as a human. And I think today that applies more than ever. People have so many different things going on for a variety of reasons. And before you make an assumption about their lack of commitment to their job or their performance, be a little more curious about what's going on, because they may actually need help. And it's not about performance. It's about all the other things happening in someone's life that impacts your performance. Of course it does. But great leaders ask questions that are beyond your job description.
100%. Like when people would come to me and they'd be frustrated with somebody or talking about somebody's performance, the first thing I would always do would be like asking them, well, like, why? Or like, what have you dug in? What kind of questions have you asked? Are you making assumptions? I would challenge them on the assumptions, and I would always dig deeper. And I think that's so important, like you said, to be curious, because I think being curious is naturally in some of us, but some of us have to switch on that skill because there's a really great small book. It's 25 pages. It's called Skill with People by Les Giblin. It's one of my favorite books. And he says 90% of people are more interested in themselves than anybody else. So if we all know that, and that is human nature, we're all going to be more interested in ourselves than somebody else all the time. And that relates to what you just shared. So when you're leading others, you're going to have to be really intentional about being curious about somebody else and actually check yourself when you're being like, hold on a second. And I challenge leaders when they're talking to people. I'll say, how much did you chat versus them? How many questions did you ask versus how many answers they gave you? Do you really know what's going on? Have you gone in with positive intent, or are you making assumption and taking the easy road? I would challenge them on that 100%.
Yep. I completely agree, because almost in this industry, we have this expectation that we all show up every day with a smile on our face and the energy to go. And we can't wait for a customer to walk in the front door and the phone's ringing. And, there's almost like this kind of virtual version of ourselves that's all of those things. And some people do that really well every day. And some people can do it some days and not on others, and to not give up on those people, because they may need a little more of you.
Yeah. And even if you have to have a tough conversation, right? Like I write about in the book, it's like, even if you have to have a challenge conversation and be honest with somebody, there's a right way to do that and help somebody feeling valued in that, conversation or that process, right? Of being really honest. So, all right, my last question, then we're going to wrap up. 30 more minutes. So what advice would you give to anyone following in our footsteps, right? We went from shop floor, we ran, you're still in a role at Intimate's, an amazing brand. I did it. What advice would you give to somebody that was watching this and like, I want to be able to do what they've done?
Yeah, to, go back to a conversation we had earlier, network, build your network, know who's leading certain companies and why, what do they do well, try to get 15 minutes of their time, a coffee when we can, and learn from other people around you, because that's how you will be able to pivot that and understand the opportunities, because different people have different things in the works that they could offer you, or this kind of linear career path today is not what it used to be. And that's actually really exciting, because you don't have to, you create it yourself. But no one's gonna hand it to you, which would be my advice. No one's gonna do this work except you.
Well, there used to be a saying, right? You do the job in retail until you get the job.
That's true.
I remember that. You do the job until you get the job. And I was like, right. And then, if I was gonna add on to what you've just shared, because that's amazing words of wisdom, I would say show up as a really good person. Be nice, be kind, and help people if you can. You never know who's going to be in a job or a company or who they know. And the one thing I think is you want to have a good experience. So I always used to say to everybody, we treat our customers like gold every day. But we're treating them like gold because we care about them, yes, but we've got a business to run, so you're trying to drive sales. Can you imagine if you treated everybody in your life like they were doing a customer survey on you? And if they were going to rate you out of 10, how would they rate that experience? And I think that's important to remember. And yes, we have bad days. And if you're having a bad day, don't respond. Wait till tomorrow. But if somebody emails you through LinkedIn or just respond and say, you know what, hey, I'm a bit busy right now, but I'd love to get back to you. Because if that was a customer in your brand emailing you to ask you a question, you would. Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah. It's always like, I love this positive intent, the positive effect and positive intent. Appreciate the value and the resources you have and offer them to others. It's how this industry was built, and it's how we will continue to make it great. And
100%.
I love that about it. Like the power of what we can all do together is unstoppable.
Yeah.
And it's a new conversation, which makes me really happy.
Yeah, me too. Me too. And so if you're watching this live, or you get to watch the replay on any of our channels, you need to go grab Ron's book, Retail Pride. It's got amazing words of wisdom in it. I absolutely love it. And yeah, I just want to say thank you so much for taking, some time out of your busy day to join us on The Positive Effect and share your words of wisdom and your career journey with us. It was amazing, Ron, to have you on.
Such a pleasure. Any time, and definitely offering up my time and resources. Saturday morning live with Ron on retailpride.com. If you want to jump in there, it's truly about networking. It's building, everything we've been talking about today, providing a platform for that to happen. So please join whenever you can do that too.
Yeah, and you'll see me there, because I am on Committed every week. And I've met some amazing people that I did not know before. So I can't speak. I think it's amazing that you're doing this. So I love it.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right.
So happy that we're friends.
Me too. All right, everybody. We'll see you next week on the next episode of The Positive Effect.
Thank you.